Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Good morning. Good morning. For those of you that are able, please rise and join together in a unison call to worship. A responsive call to worship. Good people of the church, lift up your eyes and see.
Have you not seen? Have you not heard? Our God meets us here.
Good servants of the Most High, open your ears to hear.
Have you not seen? Have you not heard? Our God meets us here.
Good children of the light, open your hearts and know what it means to delight in God.
For we have seen, heard, and known from the beginning to the end, our God who is. Come, let us worship God.
Now let's join together in singing the opening hymn, When Morning Gilds the Sky.
Thank
fullness into which we are called. Amen. We'll continue now with the prayer of confession. God asks, have you not known? Have you not heard? We try, we think we hear, but there is so much noise in our world. We hear those who shout the loudest. Forgive us for not hearing the voices of the silenced, not seeing those who are made invisible. Sometimes the pain and needs of others overwhelm us. Remind us that you are God and you are everlasting. Amen.
Dear friends, God knows how tired we are. God knows how often we are blind to the needs around us. Yet God loves us still. We are promised that if we wait for God, our strength will be renewed. We can depend on it. We are renewed and forgiven. Thanks be to God.
Testament reading today comes from Isaiah 40:27 through 31. Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is disregarded by my God? Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint, nor grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint and strengthens the powerless. Even youths will faint and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And the New Testament reading is from Mark 1, verses 29 through 39. As soon as they left the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Now Simon's mother-in-law was in bed with a fever, and they told him about her at once. He came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. Then the fever left her, and she began to serve them. That evening at sundown, they brought to him all who were sick or possessed with demons. And the whole city was gathered around the door. And he cured many who were sick with various diseases and cast out many demons. But he would not permit the demons to speak, because they knew him. In the morning, while it was still very dark, he got up and went out to a deserted place where he prayed. And Simon and his companions hunted for him. When they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is searching for you." He answered, "Let us go to the neighboring towns so that I may proclaim the message there also, for that is what I have come to do." And he went throughout Galilee, proclaiming the message in their synagogues and casting out demons.
Okay, so this is a very old story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. Once upon a time, an elderly man who was quite ill said to his wife, "You know, Sarah, you've always been with me, through the good and the bad. Like the time I lost my job, you were right there by my side. And when the war came and I enlisted, you became a nurse so that you could be with me. Then when I was wounded, you were there, Sarah, right by my side. Then the depression hit and we had nothing, but you were there with me. And now, here I am, sick as a dog, and as always, you're right beside me. You know something, Sarah? You're bad luck." Now, I don't think for a moment that anyone who is as faithful as Sarah is bad luck. Rather, I think the opposite is true. Perhaps if we look at this story from another perspective, it was Sarah who offered the gifts of healing and wholeness to this elderly man. So, here we are again, right in the middle of another story about Jesus healing people. And it all happened so quickly. It seems as though the storyteller, Mark, is caught up in some sense of urgency and immediacy. As a matter of fact, the word immediate is repeated 97 times in Mark's Gospel, which, by the way, is the shortest of the four Gospels. As we've noticed since we began our readings from Mark, we heard nothing about angels, shepherds, or wise men. Mary and Joseph aren't even mentioned. The beginning of the story for Mark is John the Baptist and the baptism of Jesus. It's as if Jesus suddenly showed up out of nowhere. Anyway, in case you didn't notice, we're still in the first chapter of Mark, And already Jesus has been baptized, spent time in the wilderness, has recruited his disciples, and is walking around Galilee preaching and teaching. The whole thing kind of leaves you breathless, hearing how Jesus seemed to be running from one event to another. And that's a lot for us, isn't it? We have a tendency to, just as eagerness is, we have a tendency to rush from one frantic activity to another, always needing to accomplish a whole list of tasks in any given day. Even those of us who are labeled as retired never seem to have enough time to take a breath, let alone take some time out for ourselves. Perhaps as parents, you use the time-out approach with your children. Timeouts were quite familiar in our household when my sons were growing up. They knew the time-out routine whenever they misbehaved. Up the stairs they'd go into the quiet and seclusion of their room, or however long it might take for them, and especially me, to regain my composure. And this evening, many of us will be taking timeouts along with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But during our timeouts, we'll probably take trips to the kitchen for more snacks or drinks and then rush back in time to watch the commercials and maybe even a little bit of the game. Now, I don't think Jesus ever took those kinds of timeouts, but he did need some time to be by himself, to regroup and recharge, and that's what our story is about today. Now, if we had been able to worship together last week, you would have heard the story about Jesus teaching in the synagogue in Capernaum. According to the story in Mark, a wild man suddenly showed up while Jesus was teaching. People believed that a demon of some sort had taken over this man's body and spirit. With calm and compassion, Jesus was able to restore and heal the man. This week's story just picks up where that one left off. Sabbath worship is over, and everybody has heard about what happened during the worship service. As Jesus began leaving the synagogue, he found himself surrounded by everyone in town. Now, the synagogue in Capernaum was smack in the middle of town, and houses and buildings were constructed around the synagogue. Capernaum wasn't a large town, and the walk over to Simon's house didn't take long at all. But that day, Jesus and his disciples found themselves struggling to make it through the crowd that had gathered in town. The men were anxious to get to Simon's place for Sabbath dinner, a meal prepared by Simon's wife and mother-in-law was waiting for them, or so they thought. They were hungry and tired, looking forward to some good lamb and lentil stew with fresh, crusty bread and some good Sabbath wine. I'm sure all Jesus and the disciples wanted was some quiet and calm conversation along with that good dinner. After the morning Jesus had had at the synagogue, he was ready for some rest and relaxation, a real time out. But a quiet afternoon of food and friendship didn't happen. As soon as Jesus and Simon and the others walked in the door, they knew something was very wrong. There wasn't any dinner waiting for them. Instead, they found chaos and confusion. They were told that Simon's mother-in-law was sick, very sick. She had a high fever and couldn't get out of bed. Some scholars will tell us that by pointing out that Simon's